Well, it's time. I've found a new thing that I just can't get enough of. I love it so much. It's Poison Moth Flight. This Ash of War is located in Caelid in the nighttime. There's a night cavalry in between Celia and the Dragon Communion Church. On that road, at nighttime, night cavalry shows up. If you beat him, you get this Ash of War. You put it on a weapon, and it's an Ash of War that applies poison if you hit somebody with it. But if you hit someone with it and they are poisoned already, it removes the poison. But then it does like an entire poison's, like an entire bar of poison worth of damage. That's kind of what they were going for. I don't know that the math works out exactly, but that's like the idea behind this Ash of War. So this build that you're seeing right here, this is just a strength build. It has no arcane at all. It started off as a vagabond. I also discovered a new thing, by the way. A new sound effect. It's called the blep. Listen carefully. That weird sound effect is... It happens on... There's like one character voice that you can... Or there's one voice you can give your character. And if you kill them with Poison Moth Flight, they go blip. It's very funny to me. Alright, anyway, sorry. So, if you have arcane, you build up poison faster. This weapon is poison infused. So if I had arcane, it would do more damage. Because poison infused weapons scale with arcane. So I would get more damage out of the weapon, and I would poison people more quickly if I was using an arcane build. But I'm not. I'm using a pure strength build, which is why we're using the broadsword. The broadsword is like the strength straight sword. So if you take this weapon and you poison infuse it, as I have done, it keeps a decent amount of its strength scaling. I think it has like a B in strength scaling when poison infused. I wanted to test this out with a dex build, so we'll do that a little later on in the video. And with a dex build, we're going to use the Noble Slender Sword instead of the broadsword. But when I very first started playing around with this, I was using this build, and so I was like, well, I'll just throw it on this build that I'm currently using right now. So the idea of, making a build specifically for this is obviously like crossing my mind, making some sort of like disgusting poison guy. But honestly, not entirely necessary, I don't think. I do have Alexander's Jar Shard on this build, which increases the damage of Ashes of War, but it doesn't increase the damage of Poison Moth Flight. It does, however, increase the damage of the attack that triggers Poison Moth Flight. So when you use Poison Moth Flight, you sort of run your hand across the sword, and then you slash with it. If you manage to hit somebody with that slash, that's its own separate damage. Poison Moth Flight has a little bit of range beyond that, beyond the edge of your blade. It goes a little bit further beyond. So if you have Alexander's Jar Shard on, and you hit with the Poison Moth Flight, but not the blade, you're not going to see any benefit. But if you hit someone with the blade, then the Jar Shard will give you a little bit of benefit, that 10 or 15% or whatever it is. So the trick is you want to poison your opponent, and then you want to hit him with Poison Moth Flight. But Poison Moth Flight is not the easiest attack to land. However, I think people have sort of overstated how hard it is to land. It's not as hard as I think people made it out to be. It's a good roll catch. I've played with it just for a fraction of a minute. I've played with it before, But for some reason, when I used it this last time, I really took to it. And I really liked it. And I just couldn't get enough of it. So here you have, you know, almost 40 minutes, or, you know, I guess over 30 minutes worth of invasions featuring Poison Moth Flight. Just really ended up enjoying it. One of the downsides of this Poison Moth Flight is an interesting thing. Everyone complains about, and rightfully so, how status effects build up even if you dodge an attack. So even if you dodge an attack from this shield, if they get the hit confirm on their screen, it's going to build up madness. That's just the way this game is. It's just the game. I'm sorry. It's just the way this game is coded, and you know, part of its peer-to-peer matchmaking. You know, is it something I wish that they would fix? Yes, but man, it's beautiful, that Poison Moth Flight. Is it something I wish they'd fix? Yes, absolutely. But Poison Moth Flight actually has the opposite problem. If you hit someone with Poison Moth Flight on your screen, but they roll it, but you get that hit confirm, you will unpoison them and deal no damage. So this is like the one instance where it will work against a person trying to use a status effect build. You might have noticed it doesn't take us a lot of hits to proc poison, even though we don't have any arcane on this build. And if we hit somebody with Poison Moth Flight and they're not poisoned, it's basically like instant poison. So it's kind of cool. It works both ways. It's really good at poisoning people, and it's really good at you know, dealing damage to people who are poisoned, which is nice. You're gonna have another blep here if you want to listen, you know, carefully. When this person gets hit with Poison Moth Flight, they're also gonna blep for us, which is funny. And this is another way to use Poison Moth Flight, which is as a wake up after a backstab, because it's slow enough that it will let them burn their one free roll, but it will catch the next roll after that. Here's the blep one more time. It's just funny. I just think it's so funny that they go blep. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this Ash of War, and I kind of want to make a build around it just to see, like, you know, how down and dirty I can make this thing. I have a couple builds already that could just, you know, make better use of this, because they're arcane builds. Most of them are like sort of bleed focused, but I could just as easily put Poison Moth Flight and a poison weapon on them. I suppose maybe the smart thing to do here would be to poison people with something else and then heavy infuse the broadsword with Poison Moth Flight. That way it still gets all of its damage, but we still have Poison Moth Flight. This is just simpler, because I don't have to switch weapons. I don't have to poison you with one weapon and then switch to a different weapon. So this is just simpler. You could also try using the throwing pots, or whatever, you know, other consumables that poison people. You could try doing it that way, but it would just take longer, etc. Here's a good example, by the way. I included this invasion for a reason, so that you could see somebody dodge Poison Moth Flight and get unpoisoned by it. This invasion, there's a cool Poison Moth Flight, you know, obviously, but more importantly, there is some sick backstabs in this invasion. So this is a different build. This is a Dex build, and we're doing the same exact thing. No arcane on this build. Started off as a vagabond, but you know, went full Dex, and now we're using the Noble Slender Sword. instead of the broadsword, because this is a dex sword, whereas the broadsword is a strength sword. And I was just curious about, like, would I notice the extra range that I get for Poison Moth Flight, because this is a much longer weapon? And the answer is, I don't really know that it's noticeable on Poison Moth Flight. I think it is. I just sort of like I just sort of take it for granted that it is. But what you don't take for granted is the moveset of this sword compared to the broadsword, and the range of the attacks on just the standard, everyday, regular attacks. Now, also on this build, I ran and I got the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation. That is a talisman that you can get that gives you a buff if an opponent or someone is poisoned nearby. It can even be yourself. If you get poisoned, you'll get a buff. If anyone is poisoned or rotted, you will get an active buff. So there you saw it proc right there. So now I'm doing more damage since someone is poisoned. Now, it doesn't last the entire time that the poison lasts. Once it procs, it lasts a certain amount of time and then it goes away. So if you want to make the most out of it with the Poison Moth Flight, you want to use it pretty quickly. So as you can see, my opponent's still poisoned, but my buff is now worn off. So I didn't really get to do much with it there. However, we've got our opponent poisoned again, thanks to that Poison Moth Flight, even though it missed. He was still like hanging out in that poison juice. So that's poisoned him again. There we go. And you'll notice the buff doesn't like reapply. It has like a cooldown, I guess. I'm not sure how that works. But here you're going to see some sick backstabs, which is always fun. The buff reapplied there. Maybe it did reapply that other time and I just missed it. But boom. That should have been a sick backstab. Boom. This is a sick backstab. Just run in circles. Just the absolute meander stab. Just the wandering around stab. That's the Beetlejuice. You know that video of Beetlejuice? And they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, me? Nothing. Just hanging around. That's me when I get that backstab. So this invasion here, I've gone back. This is the strength build. So we're back to using the broadsword. I kind of like chopped these invasions up when I was editing this video. I did all the strength ones at first, and then I switched over to the dex. But for the purposes of the video, I kind of chopped them up so that I could say, like, okay, you've seen the broadsword do it. Now let's look at the nobles do it, and I just kind of bounce back and forth. But I think most of the invasions will be with the nobles slender after this one. I don't think all of them are, but most of them are, and it might be all of them actually. But who cares? We'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, it's a really fun Ash of War. I am enjoying it a lot. I don't know why. I don't know what it does to my brain, but it's a very satisfying. It's a very satisfying attack to land. Maybe it's the big squirt of green goop that bursts out of your opponent. It just looks cool, and the attack itself looks cool. It's all edgy and like, sort of like snappy, kind of out of nowhere type thing. But it's got that build up to it. I remember this. I'm still mad about that. How did I not parry that? You can parry the moon and you can parry the sun in this game. But I didn't get the parry on the Giant's Flame, whatever that is. The one I never use. I forget what it's called. Something about the sun and how it's gone away. And that makes sense in the context of the game, because the sun in this game has also gone away. It's you can see it, but it's very small. And I associate the sun with, actually, Fair Missoula, interestingly enough. Coincidentally, as we happen to be here. I think before the tree existed. Oh, this is a good example of we hit, but not with the blade, just with the edge of the Ash of War itself. So in that instance, Alexander's Jar Shard would not have given us any extra damage. Yeah. But yeah, sorry, I was ranting about lore. I think before the tree existed in Elden Ring, the sort of like representative of the hierarchy that existed was the sun. I think the tree and its followers displaced the sun and its followers, which is why the giant's flame is the sun, according to that spell. It doesn't outright say, like, this is the sun, but, like, it's obviously the sun. And then the sun itself is gone. Or not gone, but it's very far away from the earth and the lands between. Anywho, that's enough lore. We'll get back into how great it is to be having Poison Moth Flight. We're back on the Dex build. We're back to the Noble Slender Sword. And again, this build has no arcane, and you can see how it's still able to proc poison pretty quick. And, you know, that's just even without using Poison Moth Flight as the catalyst for the poison. Obviously, you can do that if you want, and it works well. But we can just hit somebody 2 or 3 times, and boom, they're poisoned. On a build with absolutely no arcane at all. You know, Vagabond starter. And, yeah, that surprised me, that poison would apply that quickly. Obviously, a hard counter to Poison Moth Flight is like just eating boluses. But I feel like, you know, if you were to punish the bolus with Poison Moth Flight, that would pay off for you either way. Because either you land Poison Moth Flight and they take damage before they eat the bolus, or they eat the bolus, they unpoison themselves, and then you use Poison Moth Flight and they are immediately poisoned again. Rest in peace to that guy. Absolutely crag-bladed out of this world. And now we get the sneaky Poison Moth Flight, where this guy's gonna accidentally fall off the thing there, and as he runs back around and comes up top, I thought for sure he was a goner, but he's got some fight in him, and he's got a little bit of the jukes. And so he's gonna run all the way back, and he comes out the stairs. The other invaders lost him. And then here we go, right at the wall. Boom! Just absolutely perfect timing. Nailed it. Nailed it. Anyway, I just absolutely have taken to Poison Moth Flight like a moth to flame. You know? See what I did there? I would like to point out that this is kind of a recurring theme. I almost said theme, but I needed to say thing. Either one would have worked, but my brain wouldn't decide which one to say. This guy just getting absolutely roll caught, and now he's poisoned. He realizes he can't do anything because I'll just hit him, and so he kind of just taps out. And then right as I Poison Moth Flight, I think he was going for a gesture, and so I kind of, you know, whoopsie. But it happens, you know, it just happens. Anyway, a lot of Ashes of War in Elden Ring, I think people are like PvP people. They're like, oh, that's not very good, it's not useful, it's, you know, it's outclassed, etc., etc. I was really hoping he would fall off right there. It would have been hilarious. And that's all true. However, I think that players really overestimate, you know, like the level of skill in your typical Elden Ring host and co-op. You know, it's not like these things that are hard to hit are useless. There will be times when they are. but for the most part, people will get hit by this stuff all day. As you can see, this is like a 30-minute long video of me hitting people with poison moth flight. And all of these invasions were over the course of like the last half of a play session, and yeah, like I'm hitting this thing like all the time, non-stop. I'm hitting it at meta level. I'm hitting it at level 77 or whatever this is. 77, I think. Yeah, this is level 77. You'll hit it, just try it. This is something I say all the time. Like, if there's an Ash of War and you think it's cool, but you've been told it's not very good, just play around with it. I guarantee you'll hit it far more than you ever thought you would. Poison Moth Flight is definitely one of those that I think people are like, oh, it's not good. But like, it's nowhere near as. It's not that it's not. It's not that it's secretly good. It's just that other players are noticeably bad. And again, I have to say this every time, and that's okay. It's okay to not be good at the PvP in this game, where the PvP doesn't matter at all. I was curious if Poison Moth Flight would work on someone who had Scarlet Rot, and I don't think it does. I think I hit somebody with it, and it did not proc the damage. I think it only works against poison. However, in Elden Ring and in Souls games, there's always multiple types of poison. Back in Dark Souls 1, for example, there was an enemy in the poison map, and that enemy would shoot poisoned blow darts that would inflict toxic. Toxic is like what, it's basically Scarlet Rot for Dark Souls 1. Well, there was another item that applied toxic. In this game, it's a bomb. It's a pot that you can throw, and what it does is it poisons whoever it hits, but it also poisons whoever's throwing it. In Dark Souls, that item was literally a turd. It was just a dung pie, and you could throw those and toxic yourself, and it was a very weak toxic compared to the toxic that the blow dart guys would put on you. So like if you thought, well, I'm gonna get toxic here, look at that, the absolute look out behind you. If you thought, yeah, I'm gonna get toxic, I might as well just do this and get it over with pretty quick. There's actually a very similar thing in Elden Ring. If you're ever in the Lake of Rot, the Lake of Rot, Scarlet Rot, is the most potent rot in the game. It does more damage faster than the other Scarlet Rots that are in the game. However, you can sort of mitigate it by jumping in and rolling, and when you roll, you cover yourself, and the Scarlet Rot buildup slowly increases, which is why sometimes you get the Scarlet Rot procced, even if you got out of it. You'll notice you still got procced by the Scarlet Rot. That's because you rolled, or you jumped, or you got knocked down, and now your body is covered in it, and it's going to stay on you. That's what the soap item is for, is to get that stuff off of you in those situations. Well, you can jump in that rot, and you can roll in it a couple of times, then get out and let the rot proc, and the rot that you get from doing that is much weaker than if you were to get Scarlet Rot by just running through the Lake of Rot. So my point is that there's different types of poison. There's different types of rot, there's different types of poison. We refer to them as I was going to say rapid poison, but that's a Bloodborne thing. I think Elden Ring refers to them as strong poison and poison. And if I'm not mistaken, the two poisons that you can, the pots that you can make and throw at your enemies, those are two different types of poison. One is the strong poison, and one is like a regular poison. Another way to inflict strong poison is with serpent arrows. And if you have the serpent bow and you shoot serpent arrows, it's like 2 arrows tops on an arcane build to proc that strong poison, which is, pretty good. I don't know if strong poison or regular poison affects the poison moth flight damage. My instinct is that no, it doesn't. The damage is calculated completely separate from the poison. But what the game is trying to convey, like I said earlier, is it's basically like that. It's kicking all the poison out of your blood, right? It's like, oh, all the poison went off at once, right? That's what the game is trying to like communicate. But it's doing that. It's doing that in a different, in a way that doesn't really, the numbers don't match up. But they don't have to, right? But it does make me curious about this stuff. Once again, the absolutes just block jumping L1s. It's so good to just block a jumping L1 from a power stance katana or straight sword, because they're just going to press L1 again every time. And then check this out on the wake up. Perfect. Love it. I love poison moth flight. What has happened to me? Like I said, I've tried using it before. And I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. And then I just stopped messing with it. I'll tell you what it was, I bet. Whatever build I put it on, it was probably a build where I was trying some new stuff. And I've got a bunch of new stuff to try on this build. And I added Poison Moth Flight. And so that's just another new thing, right? And so it's like I couldn't really give it the appreciation and the time that it deserved. It deserved its own little special moment. And I'm so happy to have rediscovered this and really give it its moment, because it deserves that. I have fallen in love with this dumb Ash of War. It's so cute. Everything about it. Oh, it's brutal and it's beautiful. This is another thing I'll say about Poison Moth Flight, and Ashes of War that are similar to that, is that these Ashes of War that seem like they're hard to hit, they're very good at punishing other Ashes of War. I always think about Malekith's Great Sword, whatever that thing's called, the Ash of War on Malekith's Great Sword. That thing is like, as far as like balance goes, if somebody swings that and misses, they're leaving themselves wide open to be punished. And that's when these slower Ashes of War really shine, is in that moment. This invasion right here, man, I get absolutely bodied. And I get like that stupid dagger, the Glintstone Chris. It just does so much damage. And if you have a friend, it's basically like, it's just free. It doesn't cost anything. Anyway, look at the absolute luck on your boy right here. Is it over? It's so over. We're so back. Y'all are probably, I think you'll appreciate this invasion. Glintstone Chris sucks ass. People that use it and just spam that stupid laser from 10 feet back in the back, you know, get absolutely bent. No one cares about you at all, you know. And so, for me to do what I do in this invasion to this person is so deserved, you know. Like, there's nothing I could do that's off limits to this type of player. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times I'll say, you know, I'll say something's honest, right? Okay, well, what I'm about to do is dishonest. Sometimes people are like, I hate that. I don't even, why do you say that? And the truth is that, like, it's just me and Nap. Nap was saying it because Chase said it. And so then I started saying it because Nap was saying it. You know, it's just a funny thing to say, right? Anyway, this is dishonest, but it's exactly what this player deserves with the Glintstone Chris. If your entire playstyle is like, I'm going to run around shooting Glintstone Chris for free while my friend stands in front of me, you know, then you don't deserve a better death than this. You get what you deserve. And if you want to be a blue for those people, then that's what you get too. Now let's see what happens. You'll never guess what happens. You'll never guess what happens, YouTube. That's right. He's going to get poison moth flighted. But another funny thing happens. Another blue shows up. Another blue shows up. But guess what that blue's name is? Oh, you're like, oh, I bet it's Estus Delivery, isn't it? Like in that other video you did. It's not Estus Delivery, but it's similar. It's everybody's favorite blue. Unpoisoned. But let's, you know, look, 1, 2. We've even had a few seconds here for them to lose some of the poison. 3, 4, 5, and poison. And there was like a large period of time there where they were able to recover because I wasn't, you know, landing any attacks. Here it is. Boom! Hunter Bamboozled summon. You've been bamboozled. He wasn't going to help you. He's not going to help you. He's the bamboozler. You know, it didn't really matter. But it's fine. Boom! Poison Moth Flight. Kill. 1 of 3. Can we get 3 Poison Moth Flight kills in a single invasion? Endure, Charged R2, Poison Moth Flight. 1 to go. And he's fat rolling. You know how it's gonna go. Now, to be fair, he is using a great spear. You know, so it's not like he's completely helpless. But if you're fat rolling, oh buddy. Oh buddy. My mouth just starts watering. I start salivating. I'm like one of Pavlov's dogs in a church bell convention. I'm just, you know, salivating. And if I'm not mistaken, we get this one with some really nice spacing. A little bit of that micro spacing. Got him poisoned. Boom. 1 more. Oh, yeah. That's the stuff right there. No micro spacing, but still really good spacing. Fantastic. Anyway, Poison Moth Flight, it rules. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Later, y'all.